Right, Edupedia World students, welcome to Module 5 of the Introduction to Advertising, and in this module we are going to talk about testing and measuring your advertisements. Testing and measuring your advertisements. And we go back to this statement by John Wanamaker, and he was the first retailer to place a half-page newspaper ad and the first one to place a full-page ad. And he became famous for saying, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half." And I remember a statement said by this terrific business entrepreneur, teacher, and mentor, Keith Cunningham, who said that people who do not want to measure do not want to be held accountable. And the legendary management consultant Peter Drucker said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So when we talk about measuring your advertising, and specifically your direct response advertising, when you measure, you can see how an ad is performing. You can then stop that ad if it's losing you money. Conversely, if an ad is making you money, you can increase sort of what you're doing with it and the profile of it. But all in all, what we're doing is we're allowing you to gather the necessary information for future campaigns. And specifically what we want to do, it's almost like advertising measurement 101 is we want to measure response. In effect, we're asking people to put their hand up and say, yes, me, I would like that. I'm interested in that. Yes, I would like to learn more. So we're measuring action. We really want to be able to see whether people are taking action on the back of what we have put in front of them. And, this is why the whole direct response, and this is an old ad, but you can see the bit where the red arrow down at the bottom right is pointing down to that yellow box where there was clearly a welcome area for somebody to put their details in, to say whether they wanted something or not, you see. And taking action is such an important thing to be able to measure. And this is why we've got to be very careful of creating brand ads that simply don't allow you to measure. And it tends to be synonymous with the larger companies, although quite ironically, in the early days when these companies started, they did a lot of response-based ads. And you look at Coca-Cola here, and even on top of that, what happens is you start then getting these slogans. I remember with Coca-Cola, certainly when I was a kid, it was a Coke and a smile, and then it's the real thing, and then always Coca-Cola. And so it's almost like some of these ads, particularly when you're doing brands, go down the nice, fancy, and expensive slogans, coupled with the catchy slogans. So it takes us back again to this statement. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. There is just absolutely no reason for that in this day and age. So be careful, if you can, of sort of just going down the brand names which do very little, right? And then if you are sort of indeed beginning to put ads together and you're putting things in like a phone number, if someone calls, you want to be in a position where you're actually measuring where did they see the number, okay, what ad. And although we think that because a company has one phone, it's tough to track, there's actual software out there which will allow you to have a series of different numbers that kind of fall on top of your proper number, and it can track where which advert was responsible or which campaign was responsible. And I'm just showing you a Google search that shows you all the different companies, and if you did sort of put call tracking in your Google search box, you'll see so many that come out. And here again, we sort of go a little bit narrow, and you can see that little box there. It says a unique tracking phone number for every source. So you have a way, if you put an ad on, and we're talking about the internet just on this slide here. So if you have a certain domain, so for example, let's say I went Matrix Global Media / Edupedia, right? I could have a certain phone number on that page. Then if I went matrixglobalmedia.com / advertising and a different number there. So you're able to work out, okay, so more people were interested in sort of getting more information on this page than they were on that page, and it just enables you to step up on one and to maybe stop doing as much on the other. And it's the same for banner ads. We just spoke about the fact that you can track phone calls, but it's very much the same for banner ads. So here is the Sky Sports website, and you can see just underneath there is a Nike banner ad. Now, when you click on to the Nike banner ad, can you see that address? I've put those two green arrows there that comes up in the web bar. So there's all the various numbers and tracking things, and then it says GB Sky Sports. So in effect, what that enables someone to do, and let me just go back here. In effect, that enables Nike to say, okay, we had some success when we advertised on the Sky website, because they're able to see it, they're able to monitor it. So once again, a statement for the agents if you do not measure, right? But now we have the opportunity to measure. So as a little bit of a case study here, I'm going to focus on somebody who I've introduced you to before, Todd Brown of Marketing Funnel Automation. And the reason why I'm saying this is test what you measure, okay? And let me explain what I mean by that. First of all, Todd says, look, if there's one thing I've learned in over a decade of marketing, it is this. Every recommendation you hear, you need to test and prove for yourself. So you might be told this works better than that, or this works better in this situation, but until you do it for yourself, you never know really. And here's an example. Todd's got a terrific program called 26 Power Conversion Tactics. And what you're looking at here is a video sales letter. Okay, so you see where the writing is towards the top there. He talks into the microphone. You've got the add to cart. Down at the bottom, you've got the box with a bit more information. And here is just a good old-fashioned traditional text-only sales letter. So the actual information on this was the same as on the other page, but one is a video with Todd talking and the other is just text written on a page like this. So you look at it once again, here you go, and you would think that the video sales letter being all the rage and being really sort of successful and coming up more and more would be the one that wins. But this popular sales page template dropped Todd's conversions by over 70%, 70%, when he started using the video sales letter. And, in his own words, the results, it got killed. It actually decreased sales conversions by over 70%. So you see he had the control there, which was having an 8.53 conversion rate, and then the crusher template, which had a 2.59, and I'll talk about a control in just a moment. So you just never know. People on one side might be saying, listen, I've been having fantastic results with this video sales letter. And the other thing I really want to make a point of explaining here is that, I'm talking about these different sort of forms of advertising, and we'll go into more of that in the next module, but that doesn't matter. What I'm just saying is that, just that understanding that some things that work for others will not work for you or what you're trying to do as well. So the first thing you always need to do, particularly when you're looking to test your ads like this, is you create something that we call a control ad. So what Todd had first was the text only was his control ad. And as you can see them next to each other, you test against a control ad. So this is how Todd was able to know that the one on the right hand side was much better than the one on the left, because when he started using the one on the left, the conversions decreased by a whole 70%, 70. So what you need to do is you need to test a range of things. What you sell, okay, are you selling a product, a service, a program? And let me explain here, because I have got a few clients who are in the retail business but have also got a lot of knowledge about what they are actually selling. And a few times I've actually said, listen, why don't you do some classes on this? Why don't you introduce people onto these different things? And Sometimes they're open to it. Other times it's very much, oh no, nobody will be interested. And you just don't know until you test. Another thing is the price of a product, the service, or the program. You just, once again, could go in at a certain price range. You could double it. You'll get more buys. You can lower the price, you get less buys. You don't know. The offer. So for example, you say buy now, pay later. You say 50% now, 50% later. A dollar trial, a pound, or whatever. The offer itself. And what you're providing with the offer. Target audience. Okay, who are you going to sell it to? Right? Creative, so how it looks. Remember, we looked at those two different sales letters. One which was the text only, and the other which was the video sales letter. So you can do that with the creative, and so much more. You really can. But as this is the introductory level to the advertising, I just think it's important that we keep it very basic for the moment, just so you can get your head around the importance of testing, and I can give you some examples of things that you can test to. And then we look at things that you can measure. All right, because it's paid advertising, print advertising. You can say, okay, well, I've put $100 into this, I've put $100 into that. I can see how much more I got back from there. Social media ads, banner ads, traffic to sales pages, and of course the ultimate thing you want to measure are the sales themselves. But be sure to know the average lifetime value of a customer, okay? Because when you're deciding about how much money you can put down for something like that, it helps when you know that ultimately, in the long term, not necessarily after that first purchase, but in the long term, you could have a client that is worth a certain amount of money to you. And always, always, always look for the analytics using the tracking codes. You've got to become familiar with this. Again, it's a little bit more advanced for this particular course that we're doing. But early on I showed the call tracking, for example. So some of the analytics and the tracking codes don't need to be as complicated as some of them that you get with Google Analytics and Facebook conversion pixels. So really, at the end of the day, when Mr. Drucker was saying if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, what he was also alluding to was the fact was manage it so you can improve it. And this legendary figure, his name is Richard V. Benson. Dick Benson wrote a terrific book called Secrets of Successful Direct Mail. And Mr. Benson's 2 rules on testing. He said there are only 2 rules in direct marketing. Rule number 1, you test everything. And rule number 2, you refer to rule number 1. So what we're going to do now is, before we start the next module, I want to give you 3 pieces of homework, okay? And it's going to be revolved around scientific advertising, and then a couple of people who I want you to visit online who have been incredibly, incredibly useful to me as I've learned, and I know they'll do the same for you too. The first one with scientific advertising, I want you to, and you should have downloaded this by now, okay, based on our earlier lessons. Go to chapter 15, and again, it's just a couple of pages, and read that on test campaigns, okay, test campaigns. Next, I want you to go online and look this gentleman up. I've got a link here in the next slide. He really is tremendous. His name is Ted Nicholas, and I mean, you ask any of the really true direct marketing, direct response people in the world now, they have learned something from Ted Nicholas, okay? And he's got a great online blog, and it's quite old. It's from a few years back. I don't believe he updates it anymore, but he has some really terrific lessons, and one particular lesson was direct marketing's insider testing secrets, okay? So I will just wait a few seconds as you scribble this link down. So it's www.tednicholas.com/ezine, EZINE, /issue, ISSUE, -36 And apologies that I've had to just sort of do it this way, but by all means, pause the video while you write it down. But you need to go on and you need to read that post by him. And then finally, I'm actually going to ask you to get your wallet out, okay? And let me explain. There is a tremendous modern day marketer, and a young guy too. Does the majority of his finest work online, but don't you worry about it. He's got a very good offline strategy as well, and his name is Russell Brunson, and he's the creator of something called .com Secrets, .com Secret Labs, right? And I'm a big fan of Russell for a number of reasons. The first is he's a very sharp direct response marketer. But number two, when I think back, even the few years that I've been online, I have seen this fellow do so many things. And that tells me that he's been testing. That tells me that he's not afraid to fail. That tells me that he's got a very thick skin and he doesn't take any of this stuff personally. He is unbelievably successful, a very wealthy young man as well. But I'm just trying to put some context on this. He wrote this book called 108 Proven Split Test Winners. And what he basically does, he shows a couple of ads, he shows a couple of sort of examples and says, okay, well, there's this one, and then we put it next to this one, and this one did so much better. And some of them aren't very obvious. The only other person I've seen do this as well is Drayton Bird, but Drayton, has never sort of put it in a book like this, and a very impressive sort of presented book as well. Now, as you can see, via Amazon, Russell's book is $49.95. However, he does have one of these free where you just pay the shipping and the handling, and he'll send it to anywhere around the world for $9.95. Okay, $10. And I certainly have invested in it. So if you go to matrixglobalmedia.com/Russell Brunson, okay, matrixglobalmedia.com/Russell Brunson, you will see the opportunity to do that. And as I said, there I am with proudly looking at my book, which I go through often. It really is something terrific. So please go ahead and do that, because it just begins to give you an understanding and a grounding on some testing. And for once, I haven't sort of asked you to go and get 3 or 4 of books written in the 50s and 60s, even though they would do very well for you. I mean, I did want you to look at Claude Hopkins. I did want you to look at Ted Nicholas. But get this book. This really will serve you. And once again, you can get it just by going to matrixglobalmedia.com/Russell Brunson. And wherever you are in the world, it'll just cost you $9.95. And I think it will be a really, really good investment for you, because you get an idea of things that can be tested, things that are not maybe as obvious, but really work as well. Okay, so we're sort of at the home stretch now. We've got just this module 6 and then the final module, module 7 to go, right? And in the next module, we are talking about the types of advertising. I mean, there are so many different ones that you can use. So I'm just going to go through some of them, maybe a few pros and cons of each, so you can sort of have the relevant information you need as you make a decision. And as always, I would love for you to connect with me. Let me know how you're finding the training. Let me know if you've got any questions. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And you can also listen to my weekly radio show, Build a Better Business, via IO Radio. But you can visit that website to download past shows. So thanks again, Edupedia World students. And I very much look forward to speaking to you again in Module 6.